Beautiful humans, welcome back to the I Like Birds podcast. I'm your host, Zach Rippey, and this podcast is dedicated to the non-believers, the confused believers, and the true believers. Because I, at one time or another, was all three. So I'm here to help you get a better understanding of who Jesus is and what he's all about. I'd love to grow in our faith together. You learn as I learn. I like the Bible, and I like words, so therefore, I like birds. Let's start the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a great Friday so far. I hope your weekend is going to be spectacular. Welcome back to the I Like Birds podcast. And I have to tell you, this episode is one of my favorites of all time already. This is episode 21. I had the greatest conversation with my friends Garrett and Kaelyn Fuglaar. If you haven't heard about this podcast before, I Like Birds, we're all about being real, raw, and radiant with our faith. And I actually first heard those words from my friend Kaelyn, who is killing it herself in the podcast game. She actually has a podcast called Talk with a K. You can find it everywhere and anywhere. If it's your first time here on the show and you enjoy this episode, please do me a favor and subscribe and check out some past episodes that we've done because they're all very standalone and just so powerful. And definitely check out some future episodes, all right? So thank you again for being here. Garrett and Kaelyn, they really joined me and we talk all things Jesus, all right? They share their testimony on how they came to Jesus in such a drastic way. We also hear how they met. Kaelyn knew that Garrett was her husband the minute she saw him because God told her. What? Crazy story. You have to hear it. I'm so excited for you guys to hear it. They both share their incredible story and explain how God speaks to them in the small moments of their life and even the big decisions, which to me was mind-blowing, so powerful, and just so real. They share what called them to move across the country twice in 13 months. They went from Florida to California to Alabama in 13 months. Their hearts are admirable, and I learned so much from them in our hour-long conversation. And I believe listening to this conversation will help you understand when God is actually speaking to you as well. The whole conversation was filled with joy, goosebump moments, and emotional words. They share their dream of starting a nonprofit, and we talk about their gift of community and the voices they have for Jesus. And we also dive deep on how they push each other to love Jesus more in their marriage. And we talk the past, the insecurities, and what's going on in the world right now, right in front of us, and things that we might not actually know about. Everything we spoke about was in good faith, and I hope you guys listen and gain from it the way I gained from it. We're all getting closer to God in this season, and let's keep it going. Please listen and please share everywhere. And also, again, follow Talk with a K podcast on Insta and check out her amazing podcast. Enjoy the conversation, y'all. Love you guys. So why did you guys move to Alabama?
It was weird. We got here to Alabama, and it's like, I mean, I feel like I'm always asking the Lord, like, I just want more. I want to know you more. I want to seek your face more. I desire, I believe hunger is a gift, because I've been in seasons where I was just so hungry and wanted nothing but Jesus, and getting in my prayer closet and getting in the Word and seeking his face was just so easy. And I've been through seasons where it seemed like there was so much opposition. It was like I was fighting through an invisible like army just to get to my prayer closet. It was like everything wanted to just keep me, like I had no desire to go there. And so I don't know, we got to Alabama. It was like the Lord just opened the floodgates on me, and I got here and I was like, I just started burning for him. I don't know. I was just like, I need more. I want more. And so just really had some sweet God time and some just sweet time in his presence here in Alabama. And yeah, he's been kind of just laying some things in our hearts that I think are going to happen here in the future. And yeah, so Alabama's been good though. We're enjoying it so far.
And I remember our conversation that we had over the phone. You told me that you've always kind of wanted to be vocal about your faith and just kind of do more. And it seems like you've really put that. I think you spoke it into existence. I don't know if you probably talked about it with a few other people besides just myself, but it really seemed like our conversation, next thing I know, I see you kind of like you're getting on fire. I feel like you were more confident into sharing like what you believe, and you sharing him like on a social presence, and then also just like in life, you could just tell you were in the ring with him, you know?
Yeah, I'll actually say, so you can, and I don't know if anyone else out there who would listen to this podcast would ever deal with this, but I'm to the point where I'm more of like, I'd call myself a seasoned Christian. Like Kaelyn and I have been youth pastors. We've been young adult pastors. We've literally we hear the Lord say, move across country, and we do it. And it's just like, and we hear the Lord say, move here, and we go there. But having said that, I got to the point where I was so like getting just locked up with just I don't know enough. Like there's still so much more I need to unlock before I start kind of just sharing with the world. And it's not that I wouldn't share. Of course, my friends and everyone who would look at me, and see me, they'd see the way I live, and and I obviously I'd talk about Jesus and whatnot.
Mhm.
He's our passion, and I do think your podcast is so powerful because I know you've been a Christian for a while, but it's like right when the Lord, I can tell, just grabbed your heart and started doing something with you, you were like, didn't waste any time. Yeah, and it reminds me of something that happened with the apostles, but it was like, you weren't like, okay, first I need to go to school, or first I need to, spend 10,000 hours in the Bible to become an expert. You were like, I'm going to take what I know now and I'm going to start sharing. And that honestly inspired me. So I was like, wow, like why am I getting so caught up on like, well, I just need to go deeper, I need to know more. And I think some of that would be because I constantly surround myself in ministries that are super 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 deep, and it can
Mhm.
make me feel not less adequate, but you know what I mean, like wow, like
Of
who
course, yeah.
really could learn from me. But I'm also putting myself around people who this is all they do and go after for like all their life. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I don't know, so I was really inspired just by your podcast. I've been listening to it. We both really love your podcast. It's
Thank you,
powerful,
guys. I
it's
appreciate it.
relevant, um, and yeah, it inspired me to just also remember that's like the world needs this. There's people at all different levels. So what I have to say and what I can teach and what I can just tell people about Jesus, like someone out there, it can cling to that, and it can be exactly what they need. And
Mhm.
Holy Spirit will get it to who needs it.
And do you feel, Kaelyn, do you feel that I kind of sense this just because I kind of know you guys very well? I feel like, would you attest to this, that by following in Garrett's kind of, walk of with Jesus, that you've kind of blossomed as well, and you feel the need to share Jesus even more on your own end because you see what the Lord's doing on him?
Yeah, for sure. And I actually think too, like it's really important that he is doing, what he's doing, like being on fire for Jesus, because he is the head of the household. He kind of like sets the tone. But it's actually funny because the last season when we were in Reading, I was like on fire for Jesus. And so like, it's just interesting how God does that, because we kind of go like back and forth. Like we were talking the other day how like we are never like, obviously we, like Garrett saying, we're seasoned, so we love Jesus. Like it's not unusual to hear his voice all the time, even when we're not spending as much time, but it's like we're like going back and forth on our like flame.
Yep.
Again, we're both like, constantly communing with him and like, hearing him and like being led by him. But it's just like there's different seasons where like, okay, he's like really going after it in the closet, and I'm kind of more like going after it in the living room with the whole family. You know what I mean? It's just like we're kind of going back and forth. So it's funny, but it's definitely stirring up something in me right now for sure, because he's just leading the way, like putting worship on and going on prayer walk.
And it's so funny because I didn't realize how much power that a marriage can have when it comes to your faith. Because I see, like, it's so funny because once we kind of moved here, and I felt like once we moved here, we really started living together, and because we were on our own, like it was a whole new life. It was very like just different. And I was chasing a dream. She was like excited to be a mom. She's wanted to be a mom her whole life. So she would play worship music all the time when Malachi was born, like nonstop, like in the morning, at night. She would just have it on the YouTube while she did like other stuff, like playing with him or just doing anything she's doing around the house. And I just really feel like she, within doing that, really helped me kind of appreciate it, because I always was just kind of like, I don't like that music. I was always just like, I like hip hop, even though it's like I went to church on Sundays and I like the band and I like the music there. I never felt like I would ever memorize a worship song. I've never, now like my playlist is like when the Spotify rankings come out for 2020, it's going to be nothing but like pretty much worship up there at the top, And I just think it's interesting because I do feel like women, I mean, like your spouse, I'm not gonna say women, your spouse has such like an influence on your faith. And you guys, I feel like you guys are really, is that kind of how y'all met? I don't think I've ever asked you, is that how y'all met? Is through church? No?
That's an exciting story.
Should we share it? It's actually pretty cool. I mean, we did meet at church. We did meet at church. Okay. This is fun.
Do you want like the intense version or like the power punch? What do you want?
Probably the power punch.
All right.
I don't know what the difference of power punch and intense version. They sound the
No,
same.
we don't want the power punch. He's talking about like super short. Like
Oh.
we need to add some details.
Yeah, give me some good. Give the people what they want.
Good.
So give
It's
some good.
Give
Go ahead.
people what they want.
Go for it, bitch.
Okay, we do this thing where we might interject and cut each other off. We still love each other, but we just have,
Y'all have a lot of words. Yeah, y'all are good.
A lot of words.
Yeah.
So I was in college and I was just crazy, like, drugs, sex, alcohol, boys, all the things. And my brother, he already wants to cut me off. What?
I feel like the story starts with me.
Well, I got to give a backstory. Hold on. I want to just give a backstory on where I was at, because if you don't give any backstory, it's not cool.
You definitely need context of where
Like,
Kaelyn
where was I? Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so I was just in the world completely, like in the
But
world.
did you think you knew Jesus then? Let me ask you that real quick. Did you think you
No.
knew Jesus? You
No.
were like, no, it was just completely no.
I knew there was a God because I went to church like when I was little, but then me and my brothers, I started playing softball and they started playing baseball. So we got really good. And so we started going to tournaments and church was out. Like we didn't have time.
Yeah, it was over. Okay.
Yeah. So I was
Alright,
in college.
Yep.
Chris is my older brother, the middle brother. And he was like my example. He was partying, all that. He was my drug dealer. He would come visit me in Orlando. We would smoke. We would do, all the things. And then he...
You're about to mess it up.
I'm not about to mess it up. So something was happening. I'll let you talk, baby. So something was... Okay, listen. So that's where I was. Here, I'll just say that's where I was. I was in no way, shape, or form trying to meet Jesus, okay? So this is where I was, just partying in the world in college. My brother, again, that was our relationship. He was my drug dealer. I looked up to him. We partied together.
Now for the good stuff. All right, so I'm in the same way. My father's a pastor. I grew up in the church. But as they say, pastors' kids are the worst. Usually we get that rep because God's kind of shoved down our throat, and which sometimes leads to rebellion. You want to go the opposite way. And that was definitely me.
It's the enemy.
I knew all about God, but I was really just through high school. I started getting into partying, really into girls, and then after high school got really into drugs and just really in the wrong crowd. But this was my group, but all we did was party, drugs. I was addicted to multiple drugs, addicted to tobacco, addicted to just about everything. And
dang.
Yeah, and then long story short, and this is kind of where I won't get into it super long. This is a more condensed version just because our story literally could take an hour. But the Lord just started to do something in me. And I got a few different prophetic words because I was still going to church. Like I'd still go to church, probably just to feel better about myself, but I wasn't living it in any way, shape, or form. And I got a few different prophetic words that led to me kind of just being like, that's interesting. And then one night I just remember, can't really even go into detail how it happened. The Lord just in a moment is almost just like, this is how I always explain it to me. To me, the only thing that I can like relate it to is like the song, me and Grandma got run over by reindeer coming home from my house Christmas Eve. People say there's no such thing as Santa. Me and Grandma, we believe. One night, it's like I got ran over by Holy Spirit. It's like he just encountered me. I was literally set free from all drugs, from like partying, from everything. In an instant, I just no longer had a desire for any of it, and I just fell madly in love with the Lord. Like in a night, like in a moment, I was in His presence.
Whoa.
And everything fell off, chains, everything.
And this happened when you were at church, or when did this happen? Like what was?
I like went home, and I remember I think going into my room, and again there were some prophetic words that I had gotten that made me like really start to think about what the Lord was saying to me, and it was from like 3 different people who didn't know each other that all gave me the same word essentially, and I was like, this is weird. And so I just remember going like into my room and being like, all right, God, don't really know much about this, but I just want to like pretty much pray and try to talk to you. And then like in that moment, He just like flooded in the room and I felt His presence. And so my wife's doing the finger for me to hurry up. So I guess she's ready for me to get to the next part of the story.
Maybe no one would see that if you didn't say that.
Okay. So anyways, I get radically just set free and just, again, encountered by Jesus, ran over by Holy Spirit. And so I go to my whole group of friends and my drug dealer, and who's all just in our clique. And I'm like, hey, I can't run with you guys anymore. I was like,
ooh, I like that.
I was
I
like,
can't
yeah,
run with you guys anymore.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I'm getting out the game.
I was like, something happened in me. I was like, the Lord's changed me, and I can't live this way anymore. So I just break out of that group because I know that I can't keep going both ways. And my drug dealer calls me 2 days later, maybe 3 days. I get that part of the story confused, and he says pretty much in essence, whatever it is that you have, I want. And I was like, all right, meet me at church Sunday morning. He's like, all right.
Down.
I got chills.
So he meets me at church Sunday morning, and he gets radically just saved, delivered, set free. He goes back to the same group and was like, hey, same thing, not running with you anymore. He becomes my best friend because now him and I just came from the world and from darkness and into light, and fall in love with Jesus together. So it's like he was like my friend in the world, but like now he's like my friend in the light. And so this is why I was saying this part of the story needed to come first, because he starts bringing his family to church.
You're missing stuff. This is a cool part. Okay, so then I come home from college for summer, and my brother is like, I met Jesus, and you got to come to church with me. I'm like, what? So my brother was our drug dealer. Okay, so I hadn't met Garrett. Oh, yeah. He was my drug dealer, Garrett's drug dealer. Now Garrett's best friend. Now they're both in love with Jesus. And he's telling me
my drug dealer turned best friend is my wife's brother.
Yes.
That is the crux.
That is God.
Well, wait, listen, this is the cool part. So I'll make this super quick because I know this is getting long. But so pretty much he tells me I need to come to church, and he's bothering me about it, and he won't shut up. So I'm like, fine, I'll go, but I'm going on a Wednesday. I'm not going on a Sunday. So I go on a Wednesday, and there's this prophet there who's prophesying over people. So when Garrett's saying like prophetic words, this is for your listeners if they don't know, like a prophetic word is pretty much just someone hearing from God and telling you what they hear. So there's a prophet there who's doing that, who's hearing from God and just giving prophetic words over people. And I'm like, this is such a sham. This is such a sham. This is crazy. So anyway, he comes to me and he pretty much reads my mail, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, God is real. So I leave and I call my best friend at the time. I'm like, hey, God is real, but I still want to smoke weed tonight. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, come over. So I go over. So now I know God's real, but I'm like, just not totally convinced still. So I go over, we smoke weed, I stay out, I stay at my friend's house, I go to work the next day. My brother calls me, who, is our comment here. Brother calls me and he's like, hey, it's going to sound weird, but I just feel like God told me you smoked weed last night. I was like, what? So now I knew like God is real and he speaks to people. And I'm like for real, like personal stuff. I'm like, okay. And I just like break down. I'm like, all right, I'm going to church. So anyway, so then I go to church Sunday and I walk, he's like, you got to meet my best friend, blah, blah, blah. So I walk up to Garrett and shake his hand, and I hear God say, I don't know it's God at this point, but I hear God say, this is your husband. And I'm like, what? Anyway, and then short story, he dates.
Well, you even went and told.
I told my dad. My dad thought I was nuts because he's like, okay, you just started going to church and you are just met this guy and you're saying he's your husband. And it was just God, like, just showing off almost. And then Garrett actually found out he was dating another girl, and they dated for 6 months. The whole time God just told me this is your husband, but it was a really special time because I just got to like fall in love with Jesus
first,
and like, and just build a foundation. And then Garrett, 6 months later, he was walking in to buy her an engagement ring, and God told him to stop. And so he went. Yeah. And this whole time I'm like, hello. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, even the details are crazy, but
the details are all God. So like, I love it.
Yeah. And he goes home and he prays and fasts for a week, and he is like trying to figure out, what do you mean stop? And anyway, so I don't know if you want to tell this part more, but pretty much he went and ended it with her. And obviously that was hard because they did love each other, and she's amazing and stuff. So it was tough. Like, it wasn't
Dang.
easy, but the Lord was like clearly trying to do something. So then like he broke up with her.
At that point, like, all the Lord told me is you're not in the right place, and you're not where I'm, you're not where I've pointed you in the direction to be. And again, I didn't hear like him clearly speaking from the sky, but I knew that he was saying, because he told me stop in K Jewelers, that he wasn't wanting me to move forward in marrying this woman who was a woman who loved God and who was in the church. And so it was surprising. So I just remember being devastated. I remember being crying. I remember like when he told me that, like just crying and telling him like, fine, like, but I don't ever want to have to go through this again. So I'm just going to be a nun. It's just going to be me and you, Lord, like, forget it then. And that was a joke. So I'm a boy and nuns are girls, but yeah, I just remember being like, okay, well, I don't want to love anyone, that I just want to love you because I can't go through this again. And I literally remember thinking that I would not like ever love a girl again. Like I was just totally set. It's like, okay, it's just going to be me and you, Lord. And then two nights later, we are in a young adult meeting that we were leaders at. We weren't pastors of this one. And Kaelyn's actually speaking that night. And as she's speaking, I'm looking at her, and I kid you not, I literally just looking at her, I felt deeply in love with her in a moment, as much or more than any woman I've ever loved, like in a moment. I just felt madly in love with her as I was looking at her. And it was like, what is happening?
It's my favorite part of the story.
Of course.
I'm like, yeah, let me hear that again.
So then obviously how it happened, and we got married very quickly, and the Lord did amazing things. Literally our whole story is pretty spectacular because God's in every detail, and he did amazing things through it all, but we won't take up the whole podcast telling our story.
I mean, all right, I have something to talk. I have something to say. First of all, I didn't know God was such a fan of the rebound.
Right? Seriously.
God loves a good rebound. All right. And then also, all right. So two things. One, I really want to talk about this because I've always felt that from my experiences of being friends with both of y'all, I've always felt that you guys, since y'all both have known Jesus and since we became better friends from after college and whatnot, I feel that you've always been so vocal about listening to God and hearing God. And then you also mentioned in your story, Kaelyn and Garrett, prophetic words being spoken to you. So therefore, I'm wondering if you guys feel and are confident in saying this, that you guys do have the gift of prophecy.
Let me say something real quick here, because there's a lot of ways to hear God. So, and I know this can be kind of a deep topic, but for any skeptics out there, if you go look, Paul said that all should desire to prophesy. He says there's different giftings. I think he goes into tongues and this and that. I can't remember verbatim, but he said, but all should desire to prophesy. And so, like we said, prophesying is just hearing the Lord's voice, and kind of it's just like Jesus. Jesus said, I only do what I see the Father doing, and I only say what I hear the Father saying. But if you're not in tune, if you're not in the right station, hearing and seeing what God's doing and what direction he's pointing you in, you know what I'm saying, then you can't do that. And so I just real quickly, I want to say, so there's the logos, which is the Hebrew word for God's word, which is the written word. It's the Bible. And then there's the rhema word, which is what's God saying right now in the moment. So if you go look those up, there's the logos, it's the written word, and there's the rhema, it's what's God speaking right now. An example of that is if you think back to Abraham sacrificing Isaac. God told him to go sacrifice his son. But if he's not listening to what God is saying now, then he's got a dead son on his hand. So he went on with what God told him to do, but if he's not still in the process and in the moment of listening to what God is saying currently, then he doesn't hear God say stop. You know what I'm saying? Right before he sacrifices his son. And so we do believe it's super important to just build a lifestyle of just being in tune and in union, as the Bible says, with Holy Spirit and with the Lord. And do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I was going to say that Garrett, because there's definitely mantles of gifting. Garrett definitely is a prophet. Like he hears God on really big things, really small things. Like he's constantly hearing God. But like Garrett's saying, I do think it's also, you can be gifted in prophecy. And I know I hear God very clearly, like on little things, little day-to-day things. But that's because I've sit down and talk with him or talk with him throughout my day. So just like me and you are talking, that's how we should be able to hear God, because he's our friend, and so the more that we talk to him and hear him, it just becomes easier. It's like a muscle. So it should be and again, this isn't always how it is for us.
Yeah,
like
it's
sometimes
different for everybody, I feel like, in their relationship with the Lord. Yeah.
Right. And even in different months and days, like maybe I won't hear him for a couple days or a week. It just depends. But when you're walking with him closely, we should be able to have our ear turned to him to hear what he's saying,
Man, yeah, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
I was going to say, he says in the word, he says, my sheep hear me and they know my voice. So I believe that every believer who has the Spirit deposited in them, which is everyone who believes in Jesus, should be able to hear. Like, I don't believe he just wants to speak to some people. I believe he's speaking to all people, just not everyone's listening. And like she said, it's not something that some kind that's like a still small voice in your spirit. Sometimes, it can be an audible voice of God. I've personally never heard that, but I've met people who have, and so so I believe whoever's out there, whoever's listening, God is speaking to you. It's just learning to listen to his voice, and it's learning to know his voice, which comes through intimacy with him, which comes from the secret place, from time spent with him. The more you know him, the more you're able to hear him and see him, as Jesus would constantly retreat to the mountainside to be alone with the Father. And that's how he was able to know what the Father was saying and doing at all times,
Yeah, I'm so curious about that, because I don't question if I hear God. I just question if I am going to hear God more in the future. Like I'm curious as to, because I feel like God speaks to me like when I'm in my prayer time or alone time, as far as reading the word. I feel like thoughts will pop into my head that weren't mine. So I don't know if that's him talking to me, because I don't feel it as an audible thing. I don't feel it as like a little voice. I just feel it as kind of like, for instance, like I'll be reading something will really speak out to me, and then I'll think about somebody that I need to reach out to and actually send a message to them in regards to what I'm reading, and kind of give them words that they needed to hear. And it's like happened so much already in just 2 months of doing the podcast, and then just being, I've been doing the word for about 3.5 to 4 months now. But it's so interesting, because I don't know if that is hearing God, or if that's just God is giving me, like, through him kind of things to do for him, so I'm very curious as to in the future if I'm going to actually feel confident in me saying that I do hear God.
I'll tell you something that's really interesting. And if you know me, I'm not a liar. I love the Lord way too much to lie about something like this. So for all you out there listening, but in my prayer time today, I felt like the Lord showed me that we are going to talk about prophecy on this podcast, which you didn't say anything about us talking about prophecy. Yeah. And I literally felt like that's where we were going to go. And I already had some things in my heart to say about it. It's funny, because I don't even know who brought up prophecy in this. I think you asked, actually, you did. You asked about what it's like hearing the Lord. And so anyways, I think that's cool. And yeah, absolutely know you are hearing the Lord, because I see it in the fruit of what you're doing. And as you continue to draw near to him, and like, none of us know him fully, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we'll never know him fully until we're in his presence. So it's like Christians who are claiming to be bored with this, like, walk with Jesus, like, they're doing something wrong, because he's so much bigger than we could ever imagine. Like he's literally outside of time. If he's literally at the moment you're born, the moment you presently are right now as you're listening to this, and the moment you're going to die, he's there at the same time. Like there's no past, present, like he's just there. He says,
we invented
I
time.
am. Yeah. And so it's just like, we've just tried to put God in a box, especially in America. I can't speak for all countries, but we've tried to, just put God in a box, and he's just way too big. He wants to break out of it, and he wants to set people free, and he wants us to love people. And I don't know, I get passionate about it, but he's good and he's amazing.
Do you have anything to add to that, Kaelyn? As far as, like, because Kaelyn, you say you heard God say that this is your husband, and that was before you even knew that it was God, like what God's voice was to you. So how would you describe that moment? Like, how did that feel?
So yeah, it's just kind of like you said, it was a thought that I had in my head. And I think so often, like, we just dismiss those, and sometimes we shouldn't, and for some reason, I obviously think God didn't let me because of, he needed us to be married. But there's times that it'll be something small, like, go tell that person she looks great today. And you just are like, well, that was weird. And you don't do it. So it was just kind of like that. It was a thought that I had that I was like I literally in my head was like, oh, that was weird. Like, I don't even know this guy. But then it just kept coming to my mind. And I think what's important too is like, when you hear God or you think you hear God, is to act on it. So like you're saying, you actually send the message. Like I acted on it by obviously not running and going and telling him, but telling my dad. Like I needed to speak it out and kind of like see, okay, was this God? Because especially I think it's important to do that with people that you trust who are hearing God. Like when we made the move cross country from Florida to California, we actually we knew that we heard God, but we also know that we're human. So we went to different people and said, hey, we really feel like God's telling us to move to California. Can you pray on that and let us know what you think? And just kind of let people also put it out. Like I just think it's important to act on it, because the worst that could happen for little things, I'm not telling anyone to move across country, but I'm saying for the little things, like things that you think, like the worst that could happen is you miss it. But if you don't start acting it out and like trying to walk out whatever you heard or you think you heard, you'll never know if it was God or not. The only way you can do that is by, so if I feel like God's telling me to tell Garrett, hey, you really need to go and talk to my brother about this, and I don't tell him, I'm never going to know. But if I go and tell him and he's like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about that. Hey,
it's like, boom.
I just heard God. Okay, I need to keep doing that. And then you just become so familiar with his voice and how he speaks that the next time you're just more confident. And then you just are in a relationship with him, and that's just how it works. And hey, he said this. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, and we can even still miss it. But if you never act it out or speak it out, you're never going to be able to see, hey, was that God?
Well, the Bible says we know in part and we prophesy in part. And I know you and I have both got it wrong before, but I like to tell a story because it happened fairly recently. And this is what it can look like. Again, it doesn't, sometimes it's little things, sometimes it's just different. But most recently, before we left Reading, we were at a round table in a marriage class, and there was a couple next to us, and Kaelyn just starts speaking to this girl, and it just turns into prophecy where she just starts telling this girl what she's seeing for her. It's a girl in our group, and we really don't know them very well, but Kaelyn starts telling her, and I'm going to mess up kind of the details, but Kaelyn's like, I just was praying over you, and I saw you running through a field, and there were trees on both sides, and then I saw you dancing in the middle, or yada yada yada. I don't remember all the details, but as Kaelyn's speaking, you see this girl's face just start to shift, and she's like looking at Kaelyn, starts looking at her like she's looking at a ghost almost. And then when Kaelyn finishes, the girl's jaw just drops, and she goes, I think she was shaking too. She was like, I literally just dreamt everything you said last night. I had a dream. It was verbatim what you said. So in that instance, that can be important, because that girl could have just had that dream and been like, okay, well, that was just a dream. But the Lord was really trying to show her no, there's something in this dream I'm really wanting to show you, or wanting you to see, that I'm doing or saying to you. And so it was powerful, because it was whatever. And so I just want to brag on her. And that's a cool example of how prophecy can look sometimes.
Yeah. And Kaelyn, you even did that when we had dinner that one time at Javier and Danielle's place. You said I need to listen to Catherine, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but you have to listen to her about something big. You told us that. And then I don't know what that was, but I will tell you that every single time I don't listen to her, things just don't go well. And it's not, and I promise it's not the woman is always right scenario. That's a very naive way of thinking. It's legit, because she already passed the test on Jesus. She's known Jesus her whole life. She's had such a good relationship with him, with she doesn't I have to be a nerd. I have to I have to read, I have to get in it, I have to get weird. She's already done the work, and I'm not saying that in a way that you can just go on cruise control, but she legit does such more things than it is of just studying. She does everything in a Jesus way that she pushes me and inspires me so much more, because she just knows she's so logical too. I feel when you love Jesus, you're logical. She thinks of things that I think on emotion, she thinks on logic. And I think she has that because she knows Jesus, you know? So you definitely spoke that out. And it really, us talking about this now kind of reminds me of that moment, because I do remember that. It was very like vivid in my memory of like that really stuck out when you said that, because I just kept thinking like, what is it? What was she like? What do you like? Because I believed it, you know, I believed what you said. And then I think in all honesty, it's just kind of in general, just to listen to her, because she kind of already, you know, she already knows God way more than I have in my past. And she's just always just like actively seeking him and like loving him and worshiping him, and just like, you know, she's great, you know, and I think that that's awesome that you guys are in that moment of togetherness as far as like listening to each other about what God tells you. And then what do you think God's purpose was for you guys going to Reading? Because I feel like y'all were there very briefly. I feel like you got a job, Kaelyn, quickly. I feel like Garrett, you took a job quickly. You guys were in the camper. Then I saw you guys were in the apartment with a nice view. And then I feel like you guys got called to Alabama. I mean, it was like, can you describe that for me? Because I'm very curious, and I feel like people listening are right now in a season where, because me and my family are in the season as well. It's like, we don't really know what we want to do right now. We don't know where we want to go. We don't know where we want to live. We don't have anything tying us here except like her family lives here. But I feel like people right now all over the world, all over America for the most part, and the world, are really considering moving and really considering starting a new life in a different place. Can you guys describe that for me?
Yeah, so we might have differing things for what it did for us, you know, individually, but so it definitely did a couple things. And I'm just going to talk about them practically. Like, one thing was me getting my property manager job there made absolutely no sense, but it set me up for an amazing job that I have now, where I got a big pay increase. But like, when I went to my interview there as a leasing agent with leasing agent experience, district manager interviewing me said, "What position are you here for?" I said, "Oh, a leasing agent." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I think you have what it takes to be a property manager. I'm going to ask you that again." And we literally had talked for 2 minutes. So God was just all over that. And she asked me again, and I said property manager, and they hired me for property manager. So
Wow.
That was something huge, because that is a big source of our income. I also think it was important for us to break away from our family. I know that sounds weird. We love our family, but there was almost like we have to please them. We need their approval. You know, oh my gosh, they think we're not doing enough. And I almost feel like God wanted to get us out of that, because now we are we've always been sure of ourselves, but especially for me and my parents, like, I'm the baby, I'm the only daughter, I'm the only one married, the only one with kids. So there's like so much
pressure
like,
to be around.
You should be doing this.
Yeah,
you should be doing this. You should be doing that. So he kind of had to pull us away to be on our own, so that we knew like our foundation's on him, and the only opinion that we truly need is his. And I also think he was kind of setting us up for, because we were there a little bit over a year. So we got there May 12th, 2019, and we moved June 5th, 2020. So we were there for a little bit over a year. And I think part of it was like, hey, are you going to say yes to this big thing? Because if you do, I have another big thing. So, because we moved across country twice in a year, you know? So it's like, I think I think it was a combination of things. And then of course, to be able to go to Reading and go to Bethel, like, I experienced, but both of us did. But for me, like, being there, like, I just fell in love with Jesus, and was like a mess, and just set on fire again. And there was a lot. And I also think I'm babbling now, because as we're talking, I'm getting revelation of like, in this. Oh yeah, in this. I also think God showed us how, and these people like that we built community with there, they spoke this over us, like, that we have a gift of community. And so I think that we were able to see, oh my gosh, we love community, which we knew that, but we actually have a gift of building community. And so God is going to be able to send us wherever. If he sends us somewhere else in 6 months, I don't think that's going to happen.
You'll have new friends, new this, new that. Yeah.
But we are confident in knowing we can build community, but we also want to teach other people, because when you move and stuff, it's kind of like isolating. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to start over. But we realize, like, we have a gift of that because he's given it to us. Everything that we have, he's given us. But now we can teach other people, and people don't have to feel like they're stuck in one place or afraid to leave, or for any reason. Right. And so I think for me, it was a lot of things. And then I'll let Garrett share whatever he feels like.
It's just, I think the number one thing is just obedience. He's teaching us obedience. The Bible says Jesus learned obedience. And so it's like, just sometimes you don't even know like why you're doing something. For Reading, it was pretty super clear because if you don't know that story, we were watching a message one night, and the Lord literally, I felt in my spirit, and the way I hear the Lord sometimes, I just like everything in my spirit starts to like explode, and I just start to feel the presence of the Lord. And I just heard him say, like, if like go to Reading, is the short version of what I heard him say. And so I remember telling Kaelyn, I was like, hey, I felt like the Lord's telling us to go to Reading. And she was like, no. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm just letting you know, that's what I feel like I heard. But if you don't feel like you're on the same page there, then by all means we won't go. But if it is the Lord's will, I want him to show you. And so then she remembered a dream she had that she started to correlate with, wow, maybe that's what the Lord was showing me in a dream I had a week ago, but then she still wasn't sure. So then she asked the Lord to show her again. And a friend that we used to be really good friends with that had lived in Miami for like 6 months to a year, we hadn't really been in contact with, texted her. And it's like, I had a dream last night, and I'll mess up the dream, but she's like, in essence, in the dream, your family, God was calling your family to do something really big, and a lot of people were going to come against it. But God said, it's from me, and to go in faith, and I'm going to bless it. And we were like, wow. And at that point we had a lot of opposition from family and some other people who were like, y'all are making a mistake. Don't move across country. Don't go to Bethel. Bethel, depending on what world you're in the Christianese, either has a really bad rep or a really great rep. So, which I would like to say on Bethel's behalf, because one thing that I always see come up from Bethel, and coming from two people who were there from a year, they do not do any practicing or
sketchy things,
anything of grave soaking. There's something called grave soaking.
Bro, there's so much fake news everywhere. There's even fake news in the stinking Christianity world, man. It drives me insane.
Hashtag fake news.
Yeah. Fake news is so real, dude. Fake news is more real than the news.
Yeah. So
what did you from Reading?
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I got a lot from Reading. I feel like, again, it was like kind of like you said, the Lord teaching, like, okay, can you trust me? It's like I'm saying to go. It's like when he told Abraham, and this is for anyone out there who may feel stuck. He told Abraham, and this message is always on my heart. So if you've talked to me more than once, you've probably heard me talk on this. But he told Abraham, go to a land, and he said, go, and I will show you a land. And so it's like we're in a society today where like we want a 5-point plan. We're like, okay, Lord, I need you to show me exactly how this is going to work out. I need you to show me all the details. And once you show me all this, then I'll trust you and I'll go. Yeah. But it's like with Abraham, he literally told Abraham to start packing up. And when he was on the way, he would show him where he was taking him. And it's like, can you imagine packing up your house and literally getting on the road and not knowing exactly where the Lord's taking you yet? It's like, that's kind of what it felt like for us. We weren't sure what all Reading was going to bring, but we just felt so much freedom happen there. Mm-hmm. And again, we don't even know the ramifications from what saying yes to the Lord has done. I think it's going to literally something that's going to ripple for the rest of our lives because of that yes. But for me, I know that one thing that he said that he would do if we went, and that started to happen, is that he said that he was going to unlock the vision that we've been longing for. And we've been asking him to give us vision because, again, we've been pastors and we were like, but we had just lost vision for what he wanted to do with our lives. And so, excuse me, like I said, there's just more and more. It's like right when we moved to Alabama, he just started to open the floodgates. We're starting to like see things. There's ministry aspirations and things stirring up in us. Ultimately, we just love people. But so yeah, I mean, that's a quick answer. Just there's so much he did with us in that season, and we're just excited to see kind of what this transition to this season brings. So
yeah, why Alabama?
It's a good question.
We just felt like God said, go to Alabama. Like, that's just like how we live. But like,
I don't feel like it was as clear, just for, so everyone knows. Cause like we heard the Lord say, go to Reading. We didn't specifically hear the Lord say, go to Alabama. But there were some desires that were on our heart that we wanted. And we were looking in like Tennessee, looking in North Carolina. We were like looking on this side of the US and just asking the Lord, okay, show us. But sometimes the Lord, like, this can actually make you real uncomfortable. It's like sometimes the Lord doesn't want to just show you exactly where he wants you. Sometimes he just wants you to like choose and just to show you that he trusts you and he'll bless you. And so it's like, so it's way easier to hear the Lord say, go do this, than it is sometimes when the Lord's like, listen, I love you and I'm going to partner with whatever your desires are. Because it says it gives you the desires of your heart. And so.
But he did tell us both it was time to leave California.
Yeah.
So it's not like we just packed up and left again. He did say, like, he spoke to both of us like, hey, it's time. Your time here is done. Yeah.
And it makes so much, like, if you look at it even now, it's only been a month and some change. But even if you look at it now, look what they're doing over there. Like,
right?
Oh my gosh. They're so left field.
Yeah.
That I was like, when I saw, I think it was last week, when I saw them shut down everything again, I was like, my heart felt so happy for you and my friend Olivier. He was out there in California and he came back to Tampa in the beginning of everything. And I was just so happy for y'all because I was like, man, that's just got to be a nightmare out there. And it's just got to be, especially with the amount of money and with everything that they're trying to just do out there, like under the like it's in Hollywood's out there. And you guys know, you've been big on Hollywood and what's going on in the deep roots of it. And I don't feel like this is the place for that to talk about it as much. I mean, I kind of do think we should talk about it a little bit, but I'm down. I'm down.
Don't get her down that rabbit hole, bro.
I know. But this may go along with my next question, and feel totally honest. You can totally share everything you feel is on your heart because you guys are great people. You guys, I mean, my listeners know the deal. Like I've said a couple curse words. I've said a couple jokes on the podcast. People will be fine. All right, and we're not. Whatever. I don't. PC. We're not doing that.
We don't believe in masks, so we
already got that out of the way. We don't believe in masks.
We're real, bro. No. I mean, like, we don't believe in like Christians wearing a mask.
Yes.
Yeah, like I'm not talking about Corona. I'm talking about like we just want to be real, authentic.
Yeah, authentic,
like,
real.
We're not perfect. Like,
so the thing is though, it gets our flaws. And like that's the thing about loving Jesus and like loving people and loving justice and goodness is that you're going to have stuff that's heavy and things are allowed to be heavy in discussions because that's how you get to the bottom, like not to the bottom of it, but you get you expose things, you get people listening, you get people paying attention. And I think that so much is like media driven as far as like what the discussions are being about right now. And I feel like that us people, we're actually rising up and we're making our own discussions and conversations about what's going on right now. And I think it's been awesome. I mentioned it on the last podcast about there's some stuff going on, you know, like the truth is going to come out eventually about with Epstein and with Hillary and with Obama and just so many things that are coming to the surface and coming to the light by people actually, you know, feeling comfortable and confident in exposing the truth. And I was going to ask y'all, my next question was going to be like, what's next for y'all? And I'd love for you Kaelyn, I kind of saw what's been on your heart lately with human trafficking going on and whatnot. And then me and my wife have been talking about it a lot lately. And me and my wife's mom has been talking about it a lot lately because it all comes down to people and it all comes down to lives and whatnot. So I'd love to hear you share some things that you've been experiencing as far as that route of what you've been feeling on your heart.
Yeah, so we have so many dreams. We always do, but I feel like there's some specific ones that we're running after right now. And for me, like you said, human sex trafficking has been huge and heavy on my heart. And I've become aware of it for just months now. And I've just had seasons of I'm just like crying on the floor, not seasons, like moments where nights where I just cry on the floor because I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And then this Wayfair stuff came out, and regardless of what is happening with Wayfair, it just brought it up. Like this is like real, you know? And so I was just in bed, we're in bed and I'm like reading stuff and I'm just crying and yelling at Garrett, not like at him, but I'm just like angry at what's happening and that these kids, and it's just, it's
She's literally
horrific.
yelling at me like, "What do we do?"
Yeah, I was
And
yelling. I'm like, we
don't yell at
can't.
me, bro. I don't know. I was like,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Because it's like there's a point where like you are aware of stuff, and then there's a point where it's like I have to take action on this,
Yeah.
you know? And so our dream right now, and we're gonna make it happen somewhere or another. Like we've committed, we're fighting human sex trafficking, and our dream is to start a nonprofit for human sex trafficking, to not only save people out of human sex trafficking, to
show them Jesus.
This is okay. Here, I'm just gonna lay out our dream.
Lay it out. Let's go.
We're
baby.
gonna speak it, and you can input at any time.
Yeah,
this is our dream.
Go.
Because we moved here with hopes of Garrett and my brother and another friend starting a gun range. Okay, so for a gun range, you need a lot of land, and so either way, we need the land. So that's still part of the plan. I still think they're gonna start a gun range, but again, we have so many dreams. So we want to buy land. And we want to start a nonprofit, and we want to save children, get them out of this. Okay, again, this is the dream. We're going to start small, but get them out of sex trafficking. We want to build like I don't even know what to call it, like a compound almost, where we can bring these sex traffic, if we can't find their parents or whatever, where we can actually bring them into a beautiful home, feed them, clothe them, love them, share Jesus with them, and restore them. And then also we want to have another part of the nonprofit that is arresting and, doing whatever you need to do to these pedophiles and the people who are caught doing this stuff. So we want it like twofold. We don't just want to, of course we want to save the kids and the teenagers and the people, but we also want justice. Yeah. And we don't want those people to, lose one trafficker and gain another one. Like we want that to stop. So that's like the dream that we have. Like I feel like I could cry. I just want to do it so bad.
Yeah. And as like, it's so interesting because my wife is in the same boat, like she's sharing with me, and it's like, I'm kind of like, it's funny because I think I said something the other night that I don't think was very like, I didn't think before I spoke, because I said something that I kind of regret now that I'm thinking about it. I said that, be careful. I don't want you like clouding your mind with too much of this, because like, I think it'll affect your heart and your spirit. But then again, she was like, no, like it's not going to affect anything. It's going to be the opposite. It's going to impact change. It's going to impact awareness. It's going to do things, like good things. And I always say, like, I don't really want to share anything like political or anything like that's like negative on social media, like, because that's not really my vibe and whatnot. But at the same time, it's like, that is such a problem, and it's such a thing that we need to change, and we need to actually bring awareness, because once awareness is brought, we clearly see once awareness is brought, the amount of change that can happen as far as even just health reasons, as far as the Black Lives Matter movement reasons. Like, you can see change happens once people actually speak up. You see it with Pride as well. Like, I mean, the entire gay community, they put on so hard for equal rights that they actually got them. And if you put on for something and you voice it, it does happen, and change does happen. So I think that's awesome that that's your dream.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I don't know. I was going to say anything. I was going to say, yeah, that's it. That's one thing the Lord's really just been stirring in our hearts, is to go after that. And as to what you're saying about what you're telling her, you're right to a degree, in a sense that we've both been there, especially in the last 6 months, where it's like you can get so just distracted following rabbit holes and conspiracy theories and all the darkness that can become overwhelming. But what Catherine was saying, which is true, is God called us to be a light in the darkness. And, he called us to care for the widows and the orphans, and to feed the hungry, and to clothe the naked. And so it's like, you absolutely have to take action on certain things. But I completely get what you're saying, because there are some things that we'll start following the rabbit hole, and we're like, you know what, this just isn't good for our spirit. It's not anything that we can actually do. And so is this really filling me with anything positive, or is it just distracting me from kind of what the Lord's saying and doing? And so, so
it's definitely a balance, because she's the type of person where she can like read about it, and kind of like her spirit can be not okay, but she can shut it off. I can't shut it off. I let like things like that. I'm so emotional, like, and I never even thought I was. I just always suppressed my emotions my entire life. But I'm so emotional that it would like ruin my day. It would ruin my entire, like, the way I am, and I just know that. So I try to stay away from all that stuff, just because I know that like the mind is very corruptible, you know? And it's like, I'm not saying like I'm going to see it and then, you know, want to be a part of it. I'm just saying like I'll see it and I'll just be so like hurt. And so like, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's how you are, Kaelyn. You feel like you're hurt, you're emotional about it, but you're also taking action. And I love that you shared what you did today. And because I was even thinking last night when I was having this conversation with my mother-in-law and Catherine, that I was like, man, what can you do? Like, what can you do? You know? And I think it's so cool you even put in your comments today on your Facebook about what the training program that you're going to go through, just so you can be aware of it. And then it made me flash back to my boss telling me this story, my previous boss, that she was on an airplane and there was this super sketchy situation with a mom, or not even a mom, an older woman and a young girl. And it was just that she can just tell something was off, something was weird. She was talking to the girl being very like timid and just very shy and not in a like normal shy way. And then they were talking for a second and asked about, is that your mom? And then she said, no, that's not my mom. And then she just got this weird feeling of like something was going on and she didn't do anything about it. She came back to work the next day and she was a wreck. Like she knew she should have done something about it and she didn't. So like if she would have taken what you posted out there as far as like the training of what to look for and whatnot, maybe that would have helped. So therefore it's like if we as people take those things and we people that want to enact change take those training courses and really see how we can help, then maybe we can actually save people, you know, and one life saved in that regard is incredibly huge, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that's why too, sometimes it's so hard for us to like take any action, because like when you're just thinking like, I want to help human sex trafficking. That's like so big. Like, I don't even know where to start. I think that's why even for months, I'm like, what do I do? And like, really, when you actually get passionate, whatever it is, doesn't have to be human sex trafficking. It could be something else. But when you get passionate about something or you can feel you're passionate, like you just have to look, like actually take time and look into something, find an organization. And there's always ways. Donating is huge. Like an organization nonprofits, they need money to do the things they do. Donating, even just watching videos, like you're saying, like the training videos, praying is a big thing you can do. That's free, you know, and so.
Using our authority too. We've been talking about this, Garrett, is using our authority as believers to get those evil spirits out of the people and actually bring justice to those people.
Exactly.
And I also feel like you said like, it's such a big industry that we don't even know where to start and whatnot. And I feel like that's why it's such a big industry, because it's always been one of those things that's been like, we kind of know about it, but like, we don't really see it. There's no like seeing of it. It's so underground that it's hard to even fathom how to stop it. But at the same time, that's why they've been getting away with it for so long, is because there hasn't been any real action for it. And did you see, I don't know if you guys, I mean, nobody probably watches this, but like, anyway, Trump actually last night had a press conference in regards to talking about China. He was actually talking about the like Biden's plan for if he were to be in office. And Trump actually was talking about the wall being used to stop sex trafficking, and was talking about the tunnels. He was talking about Obama and Hillary. He said, I can't tell you now what I can't tell you everything now. He even said that on live television. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude is like actually like legit actually fighting for justice for human sex trafficking. And they keep trying to stop him. They keep trying to stop him. They keep trying to.
I wonder why.
Exactly, because they're all involved, and it's so crazy, and it's so mind-boggling, and it's so like I want the world to know this, but it feels like everybody just doesn't. They're blinded to the truth, and like the enemy is blinding them, or I don't know what it is, but it really bothers me, and I'm so glad that y'all are like on the team with us, man, because we're also like we're skeptical about vaccines because it's all money with big pharma. Everything is just all sketchy, you know. And I'm so glad. I will say that publicly. I don't even care. I used to do a stand-up joke about it too, and people got so weird, you know.
Yeah, no, we're with you. All that.
Will you tell us your stand-up joke?
Yeah, I said that my wife when we first got married, she was getting older. She was like 26. She's like, I really either want to have a baby or I want to have a dog. And I was like, I don't really want to walk a dog, so I guess we'll have a baby. And I was like, because that's a logical decision to make when you're a struggling stand-up comedian. And then that part usually got a laugh. And then I was like, but what did I say? Okay, I said, I basically went on to say that now I have a baby beautiful boy. His name is Malachi. If you've never read the Bible, you might think his name is Malachi. And but for the first few months, he was crying nonstop. He would just cry. And I was like, dang, we should have got a dog. And then that part usually gets a laugh. And then I was like, man, I think he cried so much because he's not vaccinated. I think that's why he cries so much. And then the crowd got like tense, right? And then I was like, what? Like, I mean, I don't really know where I stand about it. My wife doesn't want to do it, and I don't really want to argue. But sometimes we do argue, and then when she's not looking, I'll cough in his face and see what happens. and then I ended with, well, like, oh well, maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe in a couple of years we'll be able to get that dog. So.
Oh, Zach.
So it was the other side. It was the other side, but I still supported my wife. It was just kind of like you couldn't tell what team I was on throughout the entire joke, and that's why I mean, it wasn't like the best joke I had. Trust me, it was like one of those ones where I was like, I don't want to tell this one tonight. Don't want to ruin people's nights. But
I think it's brilliant, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you. But it was like it's funny because I always felt weird about telling the joke because like I didn't even know where I stood because I didn't do my research. But I mean, Catherine's done enough research for the both of us. And
do your research, people. Not you, Zachary, but
yeah.
Raya, but other people.
No,
important
for sure.
to do your research.
Yeah, and then it all just seems to come down to money. Everything in this country comes down to money and what they have their hands in your pockets for. And are you guys doing homeschooling for your kids or like as far as your future? No,
never.
Nope. So Alabama, you can get vaccination exemptions. So through the state local health department
for religious reasons, right?
Yep, that's another big thing that was great about us moving here.
Yeah.
Adelaide is so social.
Yeah,
she needs to be around people. Like she is such a social butterfly. So she's actually starting school in August, and she is so excited. And so we are. Neither one of us, unfortunately, have the capacity.
Of course, yeah. I was just curious as to what your plan was in that regards.
Right now.
Because
if we needed to, like if something happened, we definitely would. But right now we're not.
Yeah. Kaelyn is big on researching also like kind of what they're teaching our kids as far as like they're indoctrinating us into like believing the left side of everything for the most part and like taking stuff out of textbooks and just completely taking prayer out of school, taking God's name out of the Pledge of Allegiance, and everything just seems very like over the top. So like she does her research and she's a little wary about school in the future and whatnot, but we got a few more years before we have to make that full decision for Malachi. And
it's good to know though, because like the school that we got her in, it's not free because it's like I don't even know what exactly, but they teach like Bible and stuff too.
Nice.
Like I think that's important to know.
Absolutely.
Here's something that's gonna blow your mind, Zach. What version of the Bible do you read? KJV, NIV,
NLT.
NLT.
Nice,
okay.
good.
And then the True Passion translation on the phone, like the Bible app.
I like that, bro. So NIV currently right now, if you go to the Bible app, they have already taken out huge passages of scripture. And I didn't believe it until it was on the internet and they said, go to your Bible app right now and look up this scripture. And it was just gone. It wasn't there. And then like 4 or 5 different scriptures were just taken out. And going back to research, it's just got to do your research, but we're also in a day and a time, a society where it's so hard to know what and who to believe because it's like everyone disagrees with everyone. This person will come up with research that says this, and another doctor will come with research that refutes that, but then another doctor comes up and it's like one day they say, okay, if you eat meat, it'll kill you. The next day they'll say, okay, you have to eat meat, nothing else. I grew up learning that if I eat multiple meals, small meals throughout the day, that's the fastest way to speed my metabolism and lose weight. And now there's research comes out and says, no, it's
intermittent fasting.
Yeah, it's like eat one meal and then go very long periods of time. So it's just like, just in everything, it's hard to know who to listen to. It's hard to know who to believe. That's why it's just important to really.
Dude, and the science is always changing, and it's very like they even remember back when we were kids, they used to say salt was bad. It's because Big Sugar put out that propaganda that says salt is bad, just so people would think salt is bad instead of their sugar products, so that they can make money off the sugar. So it's all a big scheme. It's all the science is always changing, and that's why when people that don't believe in God bring up science, I'm like, what? Science always changes.
There's an agenda behind everything pretty much. And so that takes us all the way back to the first thing we talked about. So it's so important to be able to really get in your word, to know what God's saying in the word.
You should have the final say on everything that you do in your life.
Yeah. So Holy Spirit was given to us to guide us into all truth. And so That's, he's that meter for us,
Aren't y'all so grateful that y'all both have Jesus, like as a
So
couple? Isn't that like
Yeah.
amazing?
Man,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, Catherine took a risk marrying you,
She
but
did.
she really has got to be happy
She
now.
must have prophetically seen you now.
Yeah. She told me too, because when I recently we were having a discussion, and she told me that she's always wanted a man that like loves Jesus like with all his heart, and I felt like God told me like she felt that God still called her to marry me because she thought that day would come, where I'd be on fire like I am right now. And
Boom.
yeah, and it's just it's so interesting just seeing her, like the way, because I even think that too, because like I think of like how I am now and how I was then when I didn't really like, I knew about Jesus, I went to church, but that doesn't mean anything. And then how I am now, and I just started thinking, I was like, how, like what did she like, what did she see, like why did she do that, like why did she make that? So I had to just ask her, and she told me that she had faith that one day it'll come. And I was like, wow. And she didn't push me or anything. She never like opened the Bible for me or anything. Like I had to do
amazing.
it. Like,
That is amazing.
She must be a powerful prayer, bro. She was like, Lord. No, but honestly, I think you're amazing, and I think it's super cool. Just even y'all's story. Can I get preachy one more time on another topic I'm passionate about, real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, bro. I have a real heart right now for. So in the scripture, it talks about there's going to be a people who are going to come to the Lord and say, Lord, Lord, did I not this, that, and the other? And He's going to say, away from me, I never knew you. And I feel like there's such a high percentage of, especially Americans, again, I don't like to lump every country, but just in this, the way that Americans do Christianity, where it's like, okay, I prayed a prayer and now I'm good. I can just do whatever I want. I don't really need to know Him. And like you were, and like I was growing up, I knew all about Him, never actually knew Him.
Mm-hmm.
And that really scares me. Literally, I'm cool with someone saying I want anything to do with Jesus. And, I'm cool with it. Jesus didn't make people follow Him. He gave us all the choice. If you don't want to go after Jesus, if you want to go to hell, you know what I'm saying? Like that's up to you.
Hey.
And I give you that right. I'm not going to fight you on it. But what scares me is the people who think they're Christians, but don't actually know the Father, who one day are going to be before Him, and He's going to say, I never knew you. You know what I'm saying? That terrifies me. And so I have a real heart for just Christians and people out there, truly like go spend time with Him. Go, He wants to know you, and you need to know Him. And so
yeah, and I'm so big on that on the pod, is like, as much as I like people listening to the podcast, I'm also always telling them, go read, go do this, go be at your own time. Don't just come tune in. Like, thank you for tuning in, but also go do it, because like the Bible is so heavy. Like and I always thought so weirdly about the Bible, because I've always like heard from the people that I shouldn't have listened to that like the Bible has been transcribed over years. People probably changed it and all this stuff. But I'm like, you can't, even if it's changed a little bit or whatnot, it's so like, you can just tell that the people, like God made those people write what they wrote for a reason, like, and that's, and especially like, if you think about like the intelligence level of people back 2000 years ago, for them to like write such like powerful words and just such tight sentences, like that's insane, because it's like, dude, 2000 years ago, like they weren't as smart as like we are now, but they had God with them, it's like, it's just mind boggling. And I really just want people to read, because like, that's how I fell in love, is reading,
I read a really cool book one time. Actually, my dad was reading it, and I read some of it, and I won't remember because it's been so long, but it was super, I wish I could remember the name, because I'd love to go back and read it. It was amazing though, because it talked about everything that the Lord commanded them to do in the Old Testament. So for an example, at that time, they would wash their hands in a bowl of water, and the Lord commanded them to wash in running water. But little do they know, before doctors and all this stuff, that was leading to they're just washing in their own bacteria and filth. And so that was leading to infection and death, because they don't have doctors. And so there were the whole book is just that. It goes after instance on things that like doctors and stuff had, like they didn't have this technology or the understanding on things that God would tell them to do that didn't seem to make sense, but they were things that it was because He obviously knew. And so it was just super cool.
There's just so much in there.
Yeah.
That applies to it's like the living word of God for a reason. It's
Yeah, for sure, bro.
it speaks. I have a friend, man, my best friend. I got him to read John, and he's loving it. And I'm so excited for him because he's like my best bud, you know? So, and his girlfriend also is interested too. Like she's heard a couple of the podcasts, and she said she's teared up and whatnot, even though like they don't know anything, you know, they're uneducated, you know, and it's not like they refuse God. They don't know. And he told me that she's starting to read too, but she's starting in Genesis. And like,
Oh, no.
I know. And I told him, I texted him, I was like, can I message her? Because like, I just feel like for the people listening, I don't know. I just feel like you have to start with Jesus. Do you agree with that? Like when you read the Bible, you have to find out who Jesus is before you can actually appreciate everything else that is said.
Yeah, I was always taught a good rule of thumb for a brand new believer was tell them to go through, start in Matthew, like you're saying, which is starting with Jesus, and go through the New Testament, but also incorporate some Psalms and Proverbs. And Genesis really isn't that bad. I mean, it's kind of cool to know the beginning of the earth and all that. But like you're saying, you get in some of those Old Testament books before you actually know the person of Jesus, and you might just
it won't do it for you.
Jesus.
It
is, but it's just tougher. Like it's just also I have a friend who is like sold on Ephesians. Like I started on Ephesians. I tell everyone to start on Ephesians. So maybe Ephesians would be one too.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Ephesians.
I love Ephesians, but also like I liked seeing the thing. Yeah, I think what got me was John, just seeing the way, even though he writes in third person, which is kind of strange. After reading everybody else's gospel, I'm like, can you stop doing that? He's like, the other disciple who was the most beloved. Like, it's like, just write normal. And I never noticed that until like after I read it. I was like, then when I read other ones, I was like, oh, it is in third person. But I just feel like you have to know like what Jesus did when he was here, and just the way he died. Because when I read how he died and what happened after he died, I was like, I have to know more. I can't just let this stop. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm in it. And then I was like, all right. And then I finished another book, and I was like, I got to finish the whole thing, you know? So I was wondering what your thoughts were about somebody starting in Genesis, because I just feel like that's a way to start and not finish, or start and just not really be interested, and just completely go back to your old way without even ever coming back, or coming back so much later when you could have him now, you know? So I'm going to send her a message.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, the whole Bible, like Kaelyn was saying, points to Jesus. Ephesians points to Jesus. Genesis points to Jesus. So why not just start with the story of Jesus? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Then
exactly.
You can expand elsewhere. So
yeah, and Matthew's. The reason I say John instead of Matthew is because I once read Matthew in high school when I worked at Outback. I was like 19 or 20, and I read it, but I didn't like all the parables. I don't know if I was just too young, and it was like, because the parables still sometimes I read them, I don't get it, you know? So like starting with the parables as a completely new believer is like, whoa, you know? So I feel like there's not a lot of parables in John from my recollection of reading it a few months ago. So that's why I always say John first. But yeah, I was just wondering what you guys thought about that. So last question. I think we already talked about this. What's next for y'all in your heart? Do you think that God is doing for you guys in the next season?
Jesus.
Just all the Jesus, just putting on for the city.
That's it, bro. We just want to love God and love people. And again, we kind of talked about the nonprofit. We kind of talked about possibly building a gun range.
Yeah.
Ultimately, our heart and our whole life is just ministry. Well, we obviously work and do other stuff in the process, but like our whole life is just literally Jesus. It's a sense of we realize that we are put on this planet for him and to live through him for other people. And it's just like, so I mean, in everything we do, you know, that's just our focus.
And your podcast seems to be going very well, Kaelyn.
Yes, love it. Love it. It's definitely one of my favorite things to do, and I definitely see a little bit of a shift in the future, maybe on like bringing in other topics of conversation, because I love business. Like I love it.
Yeah.
So that's like, you know, what I've focused on. But I don't know. I just feel God stirring things. So, and that's the thing. Like, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just love how different variety of guests you have, and you guys are always talking about so much different things that I feel like can apply to so many things that like I'm doing. It's like I'm not even really doing much but a podcast and whatnot. But like hearing the marketing strategies one, and then hearing the leaving the girl that left her job as a teacher and she went on and did even better things. It's like it kind of just it's life. Your podcast is life, and I love how in your intro you even talk about I think God is so good still. I'm one of those old fashioned that think God is so good still, and I love that because it's like I love how you put God in the beginning. You're like, all right, like just so you know,
yeah,
we're going to be talking about business, but it's all about and
exactly.
So I think you should just I'm happy for you, and you've actually like seeing what you've done, like as you started before I did, and I just love to kind of like see what you're doing and kind of like pull from you and all that, and it's been really cool to have you on my team, and we I think you guys have such big voices from the way I feel about y'all. Y'all have such big voices in this world, and I think y'all should continue using those. And I feels like you already are, but I think it's just gonna get even better and bigger.
Well, not even that we just are in love with this podcast, because you are doing an incredible job, by the way. I was just going through your podcast today, looking at all your episodes, and like listening to some as well. I'm like, man, he's killing it. But beyond the podcast, you are incredible. Like seriously, you there's just something on your life. God, there's an anointing on your life. Like the Lord wants to use you. You're gonna touch just people everywhere you go. I just see it all over you. You're gonna preach. You're gonna literally just, even in a practical sense, you're gonna make people understand. I just feel like you're gonna unlock revelation for people and who Jesus is. And so,
thank you, man. I
bro,
hope so, and that's
the
what it feels.
Lord has a huge plan for your life. I'm so excited to see how He continues to use you. See what ministries you're running in 10 years and whatever's happening. So keep doing what you're doing, bro.
Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to say we're just going to shower you with all the love. I was just going to say, I just feel like you have such a gift with people in the way you can relate to people, and you just speak to them on a level that they feel like, oh my gosh, she gets me, but you also are able to teach them. And you're just, the way you're just around people is a gift. Like I have known you since high school, and like we don't talk as much as I feel like we talk. Like every time I talk to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, Zach's like my best friend. And like you're not really like my best friend, but that's just the way that, I mean, you are and you're not. You know what I mean? Like we just have such, you just have such a way with people where you just make them feel like right at home. And that's something that a lot of Christians are not good at. Honestly, like they're very judgmental, very critical. And so I think that's a special gift that God has given you, where people will let you in because of just your gift and like the way that you see them and treat them. So it's really special. And we are super proud of you and all that you're doing. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that I finally can see like what God has called me to do. Because my whole life I've just been kind of searching one thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. And I'm like, I feel like this is finally it. And it's like, there's nothing better than this. So it's like, I'm hyped.
And there's more to come. There's more to come for you.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's just the beginning.
What a beautiful conversation I got to have with Kaelyn and Garrett. It meant the world to me to be able to talk to them all things Jesus and just really get deep and real on everything, and just to hear their story and to share it with you guys, because they've been an inspiration to me, and they've definitely been a Kickstarter in my own faith. And I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. If you guys enjoyed this, share it with some friends. Subscribe to the show if this is your first time here, and definitely check out Talk with the K podcast. Kaelyn is awesome. She has all types of guests on. You learn so much from just listening to her podcast about business, about marketing, about faith, about life, about motherhood. Everything is involved in her podcast, which I love so much. So please check that out, and stay tuned for another episode coming out on Tuesday. Love you guys. Y'all be safe. Enjoy your weekend from me. All right. See you. I like chickens.